what we're trying to accomplish is really around how do we instill all of that distribution expertise to Web3 gaming? And how do we solve all of the pain points that we've seen in Web3 gaming, which is going to be high friction of wallet creation, high friction of asset management, high friction of transactions, and do it in like a safe, compliant platform where people are able to, use our XTER token or just credit card or any other system to interact and exchange with other players. So that's really like the foundation and the vision of what we're trying to do and how we differentiate ourselves from our competitors.
This is the 100X podcast. We are joined by Jeremy Horn, the legend behind OverWorld and Xterio Games, which is what we're really getting in today. Thank you for joining us, Jeremy. I wanted to kick things off with a question about you. I think a lot of times we go straight into the quick sales pitch of what you're building. And I'm curious what brought you to Web3, to Web3 gaming, to everywhere that we are right now, and how you got to the place of actually launching what it is that you're building. Before we dig into everything this episode has to offer, we want to highlight the awesome partners who sponsor this podcast and make it possible for us to work full-time on 100X. They're legends, and we appreciate them for supporting us. Astrobit is the king of automated trading, and now they've introduced a freemium model. Put those trading fees to use. How does it work? Sign up to an exchange with one of Astrobit's affiliate links and receive at least 30 free credits as a loyalty bonus. Then earn credits on your trading fees. The more you trade, the more credits you can generate. Use those credits towards trading bots and strategies. In other words, you can create a passive income stream at no cost. Find more deets in the description below. Let's talk about Reactor, a proof-of-work blockchain that introduces a brand new economic model, deep in mining software, a gaming distribution platform, the RKR token, and their game, Minions of Steel, that's proving their thesis by seamlessly integrating proof-of-work token mining with gaming. Through allowing players to mine with their own GPU while playing, not only do they essentially make gaming free, they make software free, and they present an AI-proof income for everyone. If you want to take a glimpse into the future and get there early, explore Reactor's ecosystem at the link below.
Yeah. For context, I've been in gaming now for 15 years. I started my career at Ubisoft working on the Far Cry franchise as a producer. And I joined Gameloft, which was a large free-to-play publisher in 2008, 2009. And at that time was the iPhone 2. And it was still very early in the life cycle of mobile free-to-play, right? And I took a big gamble at a time where, working at Far Cry, at Ubisoft, on Far Cry, a lot of my friends were like, why would you move from AAA, which is the pinnacle of what you want to do as a gamer? And I just had this incredible opportunity of, not only moving to New York, but also being in a very nascent space. And it was clear to me that everybody would be playing mobile games, right? And with time, the quality of those mobile games was going to scale up. And of course, it turns out it became true. And because I took this kind of risk or gamble in my career and entered a space that at the time was like really poorly viewed, disregarded, even now it's still the case, but back in 2009, if you said I'm in mobile games, people
there was kind of like, what is that really gaming?
Exactly. It's like, oh, that's not gaming, right? It's like there was not even Candy Crush. It was like Bejeweled was a big hit at the time. And now, of course, you think about mobile gaming, it's like Genshin Impact and billions of dollars, biggest scale in gaming. And so that decision really impacted the growth of my career, where not only I became general manager of Gameloft USA, but then I joined a small startup in San Francisco called TinyCo, and we had massive successes. I mean, from Family Guy to Harry Potter to Marvel to Futurama, we scaled the company to generating well over $300 million in revenue a year, and we sold it to Jam City 5 years after I joined. And of course, being one of the top executives, that was like financially transformative in my life to sell such a large company to an even larger publisher. And I stayed at Jump City for 5 years as vice president of business and operation, where I was managing M&A, a portfolio, licenses from, we mentioned Potter, but also Disney, DC Comics, Warner Bros., Avatar by James Cameron, and kind of like the list goes on and on and on. But after 5 years at Jam City, I just became very bored of free-to-play. I had been in that space for close to 12 years at that point. I kind of saw it all, and 12 years later, the early period of innovation, experimentation, kind of like Wild West approach was totally over. It was a very mature market with, incumbents in the space. And I saw the rise of Axie Infinity and the early kind of like 2001, 2020, 2021 bull cycle. And I decided, hey, it seems like there's something there. Why don't I try and take a gamble? So I co-founded Xterio with my good friend Michael. Michael is the ex-COO of NetEase, which is the second biggest game company in the world.
Okay.
And it was really around the premise of like, okay, free-to-play is no longer scaling. We've both been in that space for decades. What is going to be the next hyper growth in gaming? And we do think it's Web3 gaming. And like Web3 gaming, there's been a lot of shifts. There's been a lot of like regulation challenges, but ultimately we still see that there's a unique opportunity there. So we raised, in the last 18 months, about $80 million in capital across all of our studios. So that's Xterio, but also the 5 studios that are part of the Xterio ecosystem today: Age of Dino, Overworld, Paleo, Black Dawn, and Shadow City. And yeah, it's been a wild ride. It feels like we're finally at the cusp of it, kind of like paying off with everything that's been cooking. But yeah, it's really the at the end of the day, I always say, like, I'll be honest, I'm not a degen. Like, I'm an entrepreneur. That's what excites me, and creating great products, and that's what we're trying to do with Xterio, is like build a fantastic company.
That's rad. I love that. I would say I'm like 95% entrepreneur, 5% degen. I got some degen blood.
Sure.
Maybe I used to be more degen than I am today. I think I've cooled off a little bit. I want to ask you 2 just random questions from what you were saying before we get into Xterio. First is, what was your favorite Far Cry game, or is your favorite Far Cry game? Because that was like the early pinnacle of your career before you moved to this stuff.
Yeah, the best one in the series is probably Far Cry 4. I think it was just like, from the open world was so dense and well thought out. And also my good friend worked on it and led that project. But it's a pretty incredible franchise that is always able to reinvent itself in terms of like theme and scenarios.
Yeah, super hot take. Far Cry 5 is my favorite.
Yeah,
most people would hate that opinion, but I loved that game.
Yeah, 5th is controversial, but no, it's a fantastic series, and Ubisoft is like such a great company to work for. I'll be honest, it's cool. It's crazy that the company is 30-year-old now plus, and it's still Eve that's like running the show there, the CEO and founder, which is crazy.
Yeah, I love that. Cool, man. Well, the other question I had was, you mentioned that something really intriguing to me was when you left Ubisoft, what would have been the pinnacle of the career, to go into the Wild West of mobile gaming and free-to-play gaming. Like, those were things that were essentially looked down on by the wider gaming industry. And you left that because then they weren't looked down on anymore. Like, that became the norm. I feel like that was like mobile. Maybe I'm a consumer, obviously, so I'm coming from a different perspective. But mobile was the first, like, ooh, we don't like that as an industry. But then there was phenomenal innovation that happened there. And then after that was like, and mixed in with the mobile was the free to play, the battle pass era that I think we're still kind of in, but we're on the tail end of that. And now it's Web3. And I'm curious, what about Web3 attracted you here? Because like you said, you're not degen. Was it just the fact that it was the new space to be in, where everything was like brand new? Was there something specific?
No, it really comes around one challenge. So in the last couple of years in free to play, the market became, extremely mature, extremely challenging, but the deprecation of what is called IDFA, which is essentially an added layer of privacy on Apple and Google, really cut the business model, right? The business model was you've got excellent cost per installs, and you return on ad spend X many days later. And if you had great CPI, really fast ROAS, that was a scaling business, right? But you no longer see that happening. I mean, if you look at the top 50 Apple game outside of Monopoly Go, which is once again like Scopely is a 10 plus year company. It's their biggest hit. And it's like a combination and the combination of like decades of experience, right? But there's no, the time of like this new studio as a hit. Like there would be, today you cannot create a new Supercell, for example, in mobile. It's impossible. Forget about it. A team of like 20 people are like, we're going to make a great game. Forget about it. And there's a reason why VCs no longer invest in mobile. It's just like that market is totally mature. And so because you cannot totally improve CPI now, it's much more challenging. You have to, you have to improve our other metrics. And the two other metrics that I think Web3 solves for is actually retention and monetization. Meaning with digital ownership, with the ability to own your assets, it's proven that people are just going to stick around longer. And that's my business, right? My business is how do I make you play the longest time possible? And then how do I make you convert where you're like, oh, I've played that game for like a month, love it. I'm going to spend $9.99. And then hopefully over the course of like the 18 months, I managed to like convince you to keep playing.
Yeah.
You're going to spend more and more money, right? And that's what Web3 really does. So to me, it's much more about like, how do I fix some business issues in traditional free-to-play gaming? More than anything. I think that the rest is business innovation around what the token allows you to do. Scale products. And we know how to distribute products, which very few people understand the distribution aspect of gaming. So you see a lot of Web3 game, but there's like zero distribution. And you end up with those games that have, 10K monthly active users, and they celebrate that like it's an achievement. Where coming from free to play, if I had like 50K monthly active user, I would shoot that game behind the bar and I'd be like, so it's, it's a dead game. Like just let's kill it. Let's move on. Like you start to like be happy when you get like 150K, 200K. And I've had games like Harry Potter, millions of, close to 2 million people playing on a monthly basis. And so what we're trying to accomplish is really around how do we instill all of that distribution expertise to Web3 gaming? And how do we solve all of the pain points that we've seen in Web3 gaming, which is going to be high friction of wallet creation, high friction of asset management, high friction of transactions, and do it in like a safe, compliant platform where people are able to, use our extra token or just credit card or any other system to interact and exchange with other players. So that's really like the foundation and the vision of what we're trying to do and how we differentiate ourselves from our competitors.
I think I want to get into some specifics here, but I chuckled there because you hit something on the head. To me, as someone who did not start out as a crypto native, like I've been here for a few years, so I would now identify as a crypto native, and I came straight into DeFi and like the degen side of DeFi, and that's why I say, well, I'm a little degen. But I was just a regular entrepreneur outside of crypto, and it was selling a company and wanting to find some new field to explore in that brought me to crypto. And B, like a gamer through and through. I mean, I was playing the games you were making. I was playing in high school, and I met everyone knows this story if you're a regular listener. But I met my wife playing Call of Duty. Like awesome. Gaming is pretty integral to like my regular life. And so I love this space. One of the big critiques of this space is, dude, there's no gamers here. Like you reference monthly active users. The reason, like one of the reasons, I'm sure there's a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons why there's no high numbers there is that I feel like from my perspective, those are almost different audiences. Like there is some crossover, but crypto users and gamers are two pretty different audiences. And a lot of the crypto users that play games are more so playing games for the money aspect and not because they like games. And so I think 100%. There is like I'm curious, just because you mentioned that, what are you guys being a publisher? Like one of your major jobs is getting these games in front of gamers. How are you guys tackling that issue?
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic question.
Before we dig into everything this episode has to offer, we want to highlight the awesome partners who sponsor this podcast and make it possible for us to work full-time on 100X. They're legends, and we appreciate them for supporting us. Crypto does not need to be complicated. Cadena is building the human layer of blockchain by giving the power back to the people and allowing them to build products that make a difference for humanity. Founded by ex-JP Morgan and SEC blockchain leads, Cadena develops easy-to-understand, human-readable tools and solutions that focus on the long-term development of the space, not just short-term gains. Simply put, if we want real, regular people to enter and enjoy Web3, Cadena is making a way. To learn more, check out Cadena.io, follow them on Twitter at Cadena_IO, or watch our episode with them. RWA is one of the hottest narratives in 2024, and BlockSquare is actively proving why as the tokenization infrastructure provider for real estate. Tokenization changes everything, taking us from a world where a property is transacted once a decade to one where hundreds of transactions of that same asset are executed in moments. Any business can use BlockSquare to digitize the value of properties, launch investment platforms, and connect people to tokenized real estate deals. They've got every tool you need, whether you're a business or you want to participate in RWA through Ocean Point, where they've brought almost 100 properties on chain. To learn more, join their Telegram community and listen to our episode with them in the description below.
To your point, I've noticed in founders in Web3, they always come from one side of the angle, right? And so when I talk to game makers, they tell me, my product is awesome. And they give me a 10-minute spiel on this is the game. And often I'm like, yo, I'm going to stop you right there. Nobody cares in Web3. If you want to mint your NFT with us, I don't want to talk about how cool the gameplay is. It's that's not the audience. Let's be very honest, right? Let's talk about how we're going to market it. But the opposite is true, where a lot of founders that come from Web3, they just cannot understand product development and game development, and just it's not something they can comprehend. So the way we're approaching it is we want to play both games. We want to play the degen game because we understand that audience, we understand their motivators, we understand how we can use marketing to position ourselves in the space. And at the same time, we need to deliver really good games and distribute them. And actually, it's perfect timing. We're talking right now. Our first mobile game, which is a high quality strategy game that was built by ex-makers of State of Survival, which is the #1 strategy game on mobile, billions of dollars. It's coming out tomorrow on Google Play, and I think on Monday on iTunes, on the Apple App Store. So what you need to do is really
the Dino one, Age of Dino.
Age of Dino, yeah.
I just followed them today, so that makes sense.
So they're launching the game tomorrow on Google Play. They are launching the game on Apple probably Monday. Knock on wood, the Apple process is just a little longer, as it always is. And so what we've always been focused on is okay, either we focus on very short-term, very DeFi games, but the longevity of those games is going to be 3 months, 6 months, right? You see Friend Tech, for example, right? The shelf life of those products is very short because it's driven by financial incentive. And of course, at some point when people, take money off of the table, then you see usage going down because, people are well, I make a cent per day, and I used to make $1 a day or whatever it is, right? And so our focus has been, okay, how do we take a very, very good games that we know how to make, and how do we apply layers of digital ownership in layered manners in the game in non-intrusive manners. So if you play Age of Dino tomorrow, not only, we get those games approved by the platforms, we're running user acquisition ads on social media. We don't highlight the Web3 aspect in those ads. We just say, hey, this is an awesome Forex strategy game. Play it. But when you play the game, there's a point which is not early in the funnel. It's actually on the latter end. It's a 3 or 4 days after, because we want to make sure first you're enjoying the game. We invite you to get a bonus by connecting to our platform. And it's off platform. You just click a button and we create your account and your wallet in a second. You just have to connect with using your Apple account or Facebook or Twitter, whatever you want, or your MetaMask if you have one already. And we create your wallet. We put some assets there, and you can immediately transact. You can tokenize. But we introduce that in very layered manners. That's how we're approaching Web3, where we're really believing in the value of digital ownership, but we're also introducing it, one, on platforms that matter, right? Great games, they're not in browser. Like great games that really are going to scale, they're on either console, Steam and Epic, or on Google, Apple Store. And mobile stores is by far the biggest in terms of audience, like by far. And so that's how we're approaching it. It's like, how do we distribute those games massively, and how do we introduce new features to users? And we're doing a lot on the tech side. I don't want to bore you too much, but we do what is called reconciliation, where basically in your Apple and Google Play game, you never have anything on chain. But the moment you turn on to our platform, you're able to like say, oh, this character, I want to put it on chain and trade it on the marketplace, or I want to buy this character. And virtually it takes like 5 seconds for us to say, okay, now in this offline version, load up the character. It's now in the player inventory. And when you sell the character, we're like, okay, remove that character from the inventory. Now it's like in someone else. So we track all of the transaction on chains, but from a user standpoint, it just looks like, oh, I'm trading, what's the name? Counter-Strike skins.
Yep,
like it's
exactly
very simple. Like honestly, we've like removed all like, we've tried to make it as simple as possible. Like we've really tried to make the UX as simple as possible.
I have a question here, and maybe this is just from what I gathered from what you just said. But do you think, in your opinion, maybe the way to really make games in Web3 and that ownership really start to blow up? I feel like a lot of times right now, the games, like you said, they have 50,000 monthly active users and they celebrate that. But in reality, they're not really monthly active users, more like monthly active farmers, because they're there for the play to airdrop, and then they'll be gone as soon as that goes away. Do you think that the way to actually get gamers excited and start showing them the ways of ownership is by really abstracting a lot of that away? And you just said that, like, hey, we don't actually introduce ownership until the latter part of the funnel. Well, for a lot of Web3 natives, they probably don't like that. They probably don't want to have to wait all that long to get to the Web3 aspects where they can actually play with the crypto. They wanted to get to the crypto first to extract as much out of it and then leave, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that that's the way to actually get gamers from Web2 coming into Web3?
It's very interesting how it depends on the scale you want to hit, right? So I come from an experience where, my biggest hit, which was the Harry Potter Hogwarts Mystery on mobile, it made over $1.5 billion in, I think, 4 years and a half, 5 years now, something along those lines, or probably 4 years. It's very interesting, and that's like revenue, right? It's not on-chain transaction, yada, yada. It's like real money in the pocket of the developer. I think if you want to scale to that type of like yearly revenue, right, where you generate $1 billion in revenue every year, you need to move to a max success model. There's just not as many players, right? And ultimately, I think it's a much bigger market to target this audience than just stay in Web3. If you want to make 30 million, 50 million, go play the DGen DeFi game, right? But I think if you want a sustainable, multi-billion, repeatable business, you're going to need to like go outside. The reality is people, you and I, everybody's not only dumb and lazy, but we've got very busy lives, right? It's like, if you ask me to do too much, I fucking check out. Like, I just don't have time to, like, oh, you need me to create even just a game where you're like, create your Bethesda account when you launch the game. I'm like, motherfucker, like, just fucking, I don't have time for this shit. And so if you ask like your MetaMask, your wallet, oh, you need to move your ETH to this other chain to do something, like, get the fuck out.
Games that have required me to connect just to look at the game, there's probably a ton of them that are awesome, and I just straight up walk away. Like, I can't be bothered.
That's the reality of gaming, right? And I think that's for Michael and I, coming from free to play, we've obsessed over retention and player tutorial funnels like a ton. It's like, oh, why is it dropping like, hour in one? Like, why is this step seeing like 10% reduction? Oh, it's because players need to tap twice. Like, oh, kill one of the step, kill one of the tap, only one tap. And so you're over optimizing just to gain 3% more in retention, or like 1% here, 1% there. And so if you think about games like that, I think it just allows you to like hit a much bigger scale. And that's going to be our approach. And I think that's also why our business model around Xterio, around XTER is so different.
Yeah.
It's really around being a publisher rather than being a chain.
Yeah, you guys are coming from a different universe, essentially. And from I want to zoom out a little bit. What you just said there about being, and you used that phrase earlier, like a next generation publisher. And I'm curious, just like practically, what does that entail as far as all of the things that you guys are tackling? Because it looks like you're doing a ton of different things that maybe that Activision isn't doing, or that a traditional publisher that Ubisoft isn't doing. You have a launch pad, you have the marketplace, you have the platform itself. What all are you guys doing at Xterio that makes you next generation?
Yeah, so we're combining a lot of what is already very challenging to do in Web2, which is going to be user acquisition, live operation optimization, brand marketing, platform relationship, featuring. And that already is you need decades of experience to be good at this. It really, really is challenging. Think about a company of the scale, a Scopely, right? When you look at how many times you see the Monopoly Go ads, the format, A/B testing all those videos, the statics, the retention curve, you've heard the numbers. I think they've spent over $500 million in marketing, right, for that game. 500 million. It's crazy.
That's crazy. So
already, you not only need to have the financials, but the expertise to make sure that every dollar you spend has very measurable return on that ad spend. And so we're doing that, which I know most of our competitors, and most of them consider themselves a tech stack. Yeah. And I'm we have everything you have on the tech stack, but that's not our value proposition, because I don't think there's that big of a technical moat anymore. It's very easy to spin your own wallet, marketplace, chain. The moat is, am I better than you at operating products? That's a much, much harder game. I always say nobody cares if you use AWS or Google Cloud, but everybody cares if you're able to get them 2x their money on a game, right? As a developer. And so that's the key value proposition that we're doing. Everything else we consider is just foundational support to our work. And that's why we've been working for the past year on competing with everything else that, a Ronin, Immutable, Polygon has, and being at parity with them, which is why we've got just so many single sign-on wallets, abstracted wallets. So you don't even need your wallet. You can, but we also can create one for you. Marketplace, multi-chain token bridging. We just last week we launched our chain, the Xterio chain, which is in partnership with Outlier, and we launched Palio at the same time as a beta. And Of course it's botted as fuck, let's be super honest. But we're happy about the bots. And the reason is that it generated so much activity on chain that it stress tested the chain. And gas was cents on transaction. We ranked 4th of all transaction per day. And I think we still are right now. And I expect with Age of Dino, it's going to be we're going to go to 3 or second. So to your point, I think, Caesar, we're aware those are not daily active users.
Hey,
but right now we're showing.
I'm one of those. I'm actually a user of Paleo AI.
That's awesome.
I'm one of the non-bots in there.
But so one was super happy when people use it, but it's also to show, hey, look at our chain. We're able to have, I think it's over 3.5 million users, 2 million in transaction a day. No, 3 million in transaction a day. I'd have to look at the latest stats. And you don't see people complaining about the chain, right? And that's the best compliment in Web3. When things work, nobody's that chain is awesome. They just complain when the chain has really high gas fees, right? And so we wanted to show hey, building on Xterio from a technical perspective is just as good, if not better, as our competitors. But really, here's what we have that they do not, is I can go on the phone with Apple, Hollywood brands, celebrities, featuring ad agencies. I've known those people for a decade, which is why Giancarlo Esposito was the voice for Overworld, for example, right? This expertise and the tech that we have from our relationship with FunPlus, who's one of our investors, that you cannot replicate. because there's real technical moats around it. And also there's just like years of building that tech stack. And so that's what we're focusing on. We don't want to be indie, like here's, when I see like 500 games on this chain and I'm like, I know 2 of those, to me, that's like really a shit environment. I'd rather say, hey, we've got 5 products, 10 products, but they're really good. They're really good. And that's going to be our approach. Is like, how do we develop quality, AAA games that can scale by themselves, right? Yeah. Even just by themselves, they can scale.
It's a different playbook.
It's a totally different playbook.
I think it's interesting because you've said that phrase competitors a handful of times. And I think most people that we would talk to on the podcast, like their competitors would be like other publishers. And that's it. You guys have got that. Or their competitors would be other chains. You've got that. Or their like you guys have a list of competitors because you're tackling so many different industries at the same time. I am curious. I'm looking at your guys' website. I see your first party games. You guys have got 4 of those right now. And then your partner games, dude, I know a ton of those. We just played the heck out of Nyan Heroes. Persona is my brother's favorite. He's a big DeFi creator. Is his favorite NFT collection right now. Fableborn and Meiji, we're friends with the guys built, and AI Arena. We're friends with all of those guys. And those are like all parked on different chains. What does it look like for you guys to have a partner game that maybe is using your competitor's product in some way or another? What does a partner game look like?
Yeah, our deals are going to be like custom every time. But a lot of the names you mentioned, like Persona, like Meiji, like Nyan Heroes, those are running on other chains right now.
Yeah, that was Solana, AVAX, Ethereum, and maybe others.
But one, despite where their game is, they used our launchpad. And if you take average ETH per mint, we're the number 1 launchpad. It's true. And I tell it to everyone, you're better off minting on our platform. And it's because we've implemented a ton of not only features that our competitors simply do not have in order to like maximize success, but also we've created, I think, a much better playbook than even some of our competitors around like how do we create excitement and how do we generate actual success for you, right? And it saddens me at times when I see people minting elsewhere. I'm like, and their friends and I'm like, you should have minted with us because you've made like, 200K, 500, whatever. I'm like, you would have made like 5x that if you did it with us. And honestly, on the terms, we're like way more competitive. And that's really to show like our publishing capacity. Once again, like it's the best launchpad from a technical perspective, but even that is replicable, like because everything is on chain, you could just copy a lot of our smart contracts. They cannot compete on the publishing. The goal for us is to build enough relationship with like key partners to hopefully see them at some point shift to the Xterio chain, right? And I always go back around, all of those deals, they've got like final like end dates, right? It's like you build on Polygon for 1 year and they gave, a grant. We actually do not do grants and we do not do temporary deals. I'm not interested for like, oh, give me 1 million and I'll be on XTER for a year. I'm like, that's not interesting to me. What's interesting to me, and that's why we're like building those relationships so that more and more people join our business model, is a very traditional, where you're publisher, you're the developer, just like an EA publishes games like Ascendant or whatever. We take commensurate risks, meaning we put this much money in marketing and at time also to like help you with development. Let's say we cover 50% of development and we cover 100% of marketing. And then we share the profits of that success. But there's no end date. Or if there's an end date, it's like we've got exclusivity for 5 years, right? But we do not just give a grant. We put our money where our mouth is and we take real risk with you. And we're both incentivized, right? Because I think a chain may give you a grant, but they're not that incentivized by your financial success. We're very incentivized by it because that's how we make our money. So that's really our model. And over time, more and more, and actually a lot of those deals have happened already. We're going to announce them. They're joining the Xterio ecosystem. Yeah, we've been pretty active.
Some alpha there. Some alpha for any of the DJs
wondering. I really feel like that's been the missing piece. And I think that's also why we don't see like Web3 scaling, is that nobody has taken that approach of like, hey, my business is making your game successful in front of millions of people. My business is not 500 games on the chain. Like that's not our business. Like it does nothing to me if I don't make actual profits.
I have a quick one-off question here, and I heard this a lot when I went to Wolfstand and I went to GDC, and I heard a lot of different talks around different platforms and discovery places like that. And one thing that I always heard people talk about is like, oh, well, a discovery platform is cool and all, but the games that are on there will actually make the discovery platform, not the other way around. Do you think maybe they're misguided in saying that? Do you think maybe it's more like a 50-50 relationship and a partnership? And why do you think people feel like, oh, the games are going to build the platforms and not the other way around?
No, the reality is like distribution is always that's the crux. It's not how good your game is, right? It really is around like distribution. Distribution is king. You can see it even, Epic managed to like be a competitor to Steam, but they're like the exception that makes the rule. You think of EA like Origin with EA. You think of every fucking publisher under the sun was like, I'm going to compete against Steam. Is any of them competing against it? They all shut down and they all went back to Steam. And it's even true with, third-party stores on Android devices, right? 80-90% of transactions still happen on Google Play Store. People make a huge deal of like, well, I want to run a side-loaded marketplace on Apple. The reality is like 90% of traffic will still comes from the Apple platform. People go where it's safe, where it's recognized, where everybody is, and there's fidelity, right? It's like for traditional gamers who have been on Steam and collected achievements for the past decade, they're not going to move to a new small platform with some whatever game. So I don't think it's like a matter.
Do you think it's? I'm remembering a conversation. I don't know if you know the team from Wildcard.
Yep.
We had a podcast a while ago. Katie was on like a big roundtable panel, and she said something about how like at some point it will probably flip. But in that landscape, which would have been, I don't know when we had that episode. I think that was like January 1st. That was like our New Year's episode. And that at that point, it was like, well, the games have more users than any of these new platforms do at this point. But eventually that'll probably flip. And right now, like we bring users to the platforms, but at some point, like everyone knows if you launch an indie game on Steam, that's way more beneficial for the game than it is for Steam. Maybe it's just because we've been in reverse where there has been no gigantic platforms that have like a reputation yet in Web3. What do you think? Like, what do you think it's going to take for you guys to, because that's the playbook for you guys is becoming that platform. Do you think there's a timeline where like, hey, we can be recognized as the Steam of Web3 now?
That really isn't our business. Like
okay.
No, it really isn't. Like our games are going to be distributed on Google Play, Apple App Store, Epic Store, and the day, Steam allows Web3 games will be there, and the day.
So got it. So not that you want the publishing platform as well. It's more like you're publishing the games.
No. I think that would be a disaster. Like that would be suicide. No. We're in like. We go where people are, right? It's like, cool. This is the plaza. There's millions of people. I'm not going to be like, it's the classic, like build and they will come. It's the dumbest fucking thing to say. Like the cemetery is full of founders who are like, but my product is better. It's like, look at free to play games. It's not, quality matters, but distribution matters way, 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 way. I always say I'd rather have a shit game with the best user acquisition in the world than a fantastic game with bad user acquisition. Like, very simple metric.
Yeah, people need to play your game.
That's it. Like, and if the game looks like ass, but I get 50-cent return on every dollar I spend. Like, if I make $150 over 6 months on every dollar I spend, this is all I care about. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
It's very simple.
That makes sense. Yeah. I mean, you guys are essentially coming at it from a way different minded perspective. You mentioned like, hey, I'm not a DJ, I'm an entrepreneur. Like I've built these businesses. And I think that's a deficiency that Web3 has had for a long time. And it feels like there are more maybe like big dogs coming into the playground right now when it's been a lot of people that have never built businesses. We were in a creator call this morning with some of the guys from Owned, if you know them, and talking about how I don't know, that like it feels like everyone's been playing on the kiddie playground, and it's like 17-year-olds hiding behind PFPs trying to publish games or promote channels or get users to play. And at some point, like the Ubisofts of the world say, hey, like we're actually interested in playing on the playground. And then it's kind of over for all the small dogs. And that's where you guys see yourselves, is we're coming in with that past and that experience, ready to bring that to the table.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to see it. I'm not as sure that like Ubisoft never managed to crack the free-to-play business, for example, right? I'm not sure that there's this like, oh, Zynga's coming, yada, yada. It's like, honestly, they tend to focus on like their actual business, right?
Right.
And
more like an experiment if they dip their toes in over here.
They try. I like Ubisoft is a very experimental company, so they try stuff. But at the end of the day, they have investors and a public stock to manage, right? So they are not like, oh yeah, we spend that money and it's not doing anything. They're like, no, we want to be a profitable company. So we want to optimize for EBITDA. We don't have that problem. So I'm not as like convinced that the big dogs are the biggest challengers. Honestly, there's very few like, I think there's only 2 other competitors that I'm worried about as like that I see as like competitors, and I can name them, and I love them both.
Yeah, name drop them.
Yeah, I mean Ronin. I think they're extremely smart. They're of course like some of the biggest like user count. I want to see them doing more on the like mass access publishing, right? I think if they manage to crack that, if they hire the right people, they've got like, they're a big competitor of ours, right? We're not at the scale of a Ronin by any means, but in terms of skill set, I'm like, ooh, if they combine what they have with what they don't have, fantastic. And then Immutable. I think those are the 2 really that I'm like, if they manage to like figure out the cocktail and the secret sauce, then they're like in the same vein as us, and then it becomes more challenging. But thankfully for now, they're better on the Web3 side than us, but they're not as good on the like scaling.
That makes sense. You guys both have your advantage at the table.
Yeah,
so now it's a matter of who wins.
Think the question is like who fixes their disadvantage the fastest?
Yeah,
right? Through hiring, through expertise. But yeah, those 2 mass.
It's fun. That's like a game. I mean, it's a game with your company, so maybe less fun for you. But in my mind, that's part of what I love about entrepreneurship. Is like it's
for sure.
It almost is a game. I was playing a card game with some friends last night, and one guy had a deck that perfectly balanced the others, and it felt like it was like, just like you said, it was just a matter of speed, because they were each winning in their own unique arena. I mean, it was just who could pull it out a little bit faster.
Exactly.
I have 2 questions, and then we can wrap just about how people can engage with you guys. The first is, it feels like everywhere I look right now, whether it's in DeFi or it's in GameFi, it's all about points and airdrops. And we just did a ton of Meow stuff. I know we mentioned Nine here is one of your guys' partner games. We just grinded the heck out of their Meow points. I don't know what that's going to turn into. I just did the G3 airdrop. I'm curious, how are you guys tapping into, if someone is getting excited about like the point season, how do they tap into your guys' ecosystem?
Yeah, so there's 3 main ways. So one is playing Paleo, which many people are doing already, interacting with the product. The second one is playing Age of Dino starting tomorrow, playing the product. They all have kind of like a different amount of points. They all lead to the same ecosystem rewards, but they have different ratios that we're not disclosing yet. But Paleo, Age of Dino, and then we're launching our SocialFi platform on Monday, which is that's alpha. But it's coming. We're doing things very differently, and that's actually real alpha. Where I think the noise season of points is kind of over, like the hardcore farming of like, hashtag blog, hashtag param, hashtag yada yada. It's like 5. The portal coin method was awesome when they created it. I think now it's like overdone. We are doing that, of course, but we're combining it with like a bigger focus on even what Pac-Moon showed is successful is like user-generated content. So images, memes, videos, but we're also doing a lot of partnership with NFT collections, where if you own certain NFTs that, mostly on like the gaming side or partners of ours, you get multiplier points from like referrals, community voting on content. So we're trying to have something that is a little more elevated, that uses what has worked, but also pushing on what we think is like the future of SocialFi. So really excited about it, and kind of like those three avenues is what's going to like lead you to points.
Cool. Yeah, that makes sense. We've been doing, a bit of content on the farming side of things. It's just, I'm having fun. I don't know what any of it's going to translate to, but it's like, it's fun to do. Sure. I'm definitely the guy that if I'm playing like a game, I definitely, if you throw some challenges in there that I can grind every day, I'm the one that like free to play games can really take advantage of if they're nefarious, because I just want to grind every challenge
sure.
you put in front of me. So we have covered points and how people like that, maybe the more DeFi native people want to get involved with you guys are doing Xterio. But I'm curious, if I just am a gamer, you guys are doing, a huge focus on let's just get regular gamers to actually want to play our games. What games, whether they're partner games, first party games, you would say right now, this is a question that Caesar and I ask all the time. I ask whenever I look at a game, is it actually fun enough that like my wife, who I play a lot of video games with, and doesn't care about crypto, that she would have a blast and want to play? I'm curious, like what games, maybe name drop a few that are at a point right now that people could just have fun playing the game in and of itself, excluding crypto, excluding points. Like they just want to have fun and play a game. What should they check out?
Oh, a Web3 game, you mean?
Yeah, anything in your ecosystem.
Yeah. I've played Shrapnel quite a lot over the past year, and the project really has like drastically like improved. It's always been good, but now it's great. They're kind of like, outside of Xterio title, they're kind of like the project I like to keep an eye on, because I think there's like real possibility for it to like become great.
Yeah, we agree. That's one of my favorites. That's on my top 3 list.
They're really good. You mentioned Wildcard. I have not played it, but everybody had told me like, no, you should play it. It's awesome. It just, I just never got access. At some point, I will.
We can get you access if you want to play.
Great. Yeah, but everybody told me it's great. I think those are like kind of like the two that I can like really think about. There's some really, really great game. Like I know people love like Pixels and a bunch of others. I tend to be a little boring as a gamer. I'm like, I want console quality.
Agreed.
And if it's not that, I'm just like, the time is just so finite. I'm like, especially being like a founder and, family man, yada, yada. I may have like 30 minutes every couple of days to play a game. So I'm like, I just want to be wowed. I'm like, it's like a TV show. I'm like, you better entertain me for 30 minutes. Like, I don't want to fucking work. I'm like, I turn it on and I'm like, oh, this is fucking good. Because I just don't have time for more. So I tend to gravitate more to games that have this like type of quality level.
Cool. Yeah.
Cool.
Those are good name drops. I like those games a lot. Okay. Do you have like that you're having fun with or is worth playing in your guys' ecosystem, like a first party game? I don't know how many of your first parties are playable right now that people just have fun playing.
Age of Dino, Shadow City, and Black Dawn are like fully playable. I'm a RPG guy by nature. I'm a JRPG guy even more. Black Dawn is the one I personally have the most fun. Age of Dino, if you're into like strategy game, is awesome. I'm not. Like I've never been that gamer. I mean, it's fine to recognize, it's like you always know, and I've told the team, I was like, when they asked me for feedback, I was like, I'm not the target consumer, and so please don't take my feedback as like with weight, right?
Yeah. But I play shooters and I play RPGs. So like
on that I'm good. Like I can give you some good feedback. If it's not a genre I know very well, and it's been true in my career, like match 3 game, I'm not very good at that. And so my feedback was more around like some like objectively, this is too long, we need to fix the flow. But Age of Dino is awesome. It looks fantastic. But, the DAU is like always on the shorter side. Like it's like a rabid audience. I'm an RPG guy. So Black Dawn is definitely the one I'm really excited about.
Sick.
And then Overworld. But Overworld is like, it is so ambitious. I think it is the best looking Web3 game even today, and we're early in development, like by by miles, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's like you're watching an anime meeting like Western culture and art, like aesthetics. It is the most beautiful game, but it's going to take us a while to get it to like where
to get it fleshed out. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is like, yeah, it's going to end up being like a $50 million development.
Well, that gets me stoked about
playing.
Yeah.
I
just want to play good games.
I'm super
like,
stoked.
Genuinely good games.
I'm super stoked, but it's going to take, I mean, yeah, it's development, right?
Yep.
When I hear like, it's like, oh yeah, we're going to finish development in like a year. I'm like, okay. Sure, man.
It's like we just announced, but we'll have you guys again in 2 months.
This awesome FPS is ready in a year. I'm like, oh, sure, man.
How awesome is it?
Yeah, it can't be that good, man.
I've gotten burned by a lot of those. I felt for a lot of those.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't create gaming content for a long time because it was that. Like, we've been in crypto for years, and we have like tried a couple of times to get into it. And then every time we would go to play the games, like we'd have a blast talking to the studios, but when we play the game, we're like, we can't do anything.
It's too early, and it's fine, right? I think you just need to know what you're in it for. It was an awesome chat. Gonna bounce. But,
awesome. Thank you,
really
Jeremy.
Pleasure.
I appreciate
Take
it.
care.
You can find all of those games down here. You can find Xterio down here. Make sure you engage with them. Send them some love from 100X. We'll see you next time.